This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to Dr. TSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, hello. Let me first introduce my guest. I would say guest of honor, as many wanted him to be on the show today on another extension of the issue which is really bothering the entire world. Not just Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, India, not just Europe, America, but the entire world. This is none other than Dr. Reddy-Narasimha Reddy garu. Sir, welcome to this special show. Once again, I'm thankful to you.
Thank you.
This show is very clear, and we have made it very amply clear that it is the public money which is being invested in the name of vaccination, and that too for public health. So, in doing so, are the governments, whether state, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, southern India governments were right from Kerala, or all the state governments across India and the union government headed by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, are they doing justice in announcing dry runs and then in stating that from January 16th onwards the vaccination drive will go on? The world is also bothersome to the extent that the second wave has already started to hit Europe, in particular United Kingdom and United States of America, where we have seen people dying in thousands, lakhs getting affected. So, in such a scenario, is India ready to accept this vaccination for which the data still is remote, unavailable? The government and ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, and Union Health Ministries, and all the state governments headed by chief ministers as well as their health ministers in tandem, health secretaries, chief secretaries in unison. Why is that they are not making it very clear as to what this vaccination is all about? How fatal this vaccination shall be? Where is the transparency? Who is accountable? Is it not the public money, thousands of crores of rupees, which is being invested? And is it for public purpose? At the one side, we are stating that herd immunity has come into play. Then what is this happening? So, Narasimha Reddy garu, kindly, I'll make you a presenter. You can start with PPT. Yes, sir, you are the presenter
Sure.
now.
Thank you. Thank you once again for giving me opportunity to speak on this occasion. I'll just 1 second. Okay, can you see the?
Yes, sir, very clear. It is very, very clear.
Thank you, Dr. Shivaprasad Reddy, for giving me another opportunity to speak on this issue. I think today we are discussing another important aspect in the COVID fight. And I think next week COVID vaccination is going to be rolled out by Government of India in a massive scale. So the government is aiming at 3 crore vaccinations, basically starting with doctors, medical staff, and then frontline workers. So it includes probably police, also ASHA health workers. So all these frontline workers have been identified, and they are going to be vaccinated. And they have rolled out a co-win software. And this software, it seems, by yesterday received 78 lakh registration. So we are not sure if these registrations match with the 3 crore frontline workers identified, but I think these two figures, I think, are probably separate. But anyway, I think we are going to discuss today more about vaccination and the issues surrounding vaccination. Uh, it is not about whether vaccine is good or not, or if you want to take it or not. It's not about it, but we look at the challenges around this. Now, I will just go back to the origin just briefly. Uh, this the epidemiology and pathogenesis of SARS-CoV-2 is still the origin is still debated, and but recently, New York Times carried a big article by Nicholas Baker, and this has become more authentic because of the research that went beyond behind that article, and now more and more hypothesis is getting strengthened. Is SARS-CoV-2 is a result of a lab. That means it was a result. It is a result of a human research of related to gain of function research studies that have been going on for the past 10, 15 years, funded by US, United States, but happening in China in Wuhan. That is the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And we know Wuhan is where the COVID-19 has emerged. So there has been a lot of evidence which has been generated in this article, which tries to prove the hypothesis that this is a human-generated virus. So that means, but then governments are still not ready to accept this and take action with regard to that. I think that needs to be flagged. If governments all over the world are saying we want to, respond to pandemic sustainably, I think origin establishment is very, very important, but that's not happening. And second, they hold on to the issue that it is zoonotic. That means it has traveled from animals to humans. Of course, coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2 naturally is a animal-based virus, basically bat virus, but it has been tweaked in the labs and being tested for its virulence and transmissibility. I think that's where accidentally it might have got released, but there's no admission about it, and the research continues on that, and that's all the more concerned about it. Now, third, I think we know climate change is also leading to emergence of lot of viruses apart from human, researched viruses. So we have seen in the past several years, Ebola, Nipah virus, avian flu, and now recently we are looking at avian flu across 7 to 8 states in India, and a lot of birds are dying. The first time I'm hearing crows dying because of avian flu. So crows are wild, and I think they are sturdy. They're supposed to be sturdy better than poultry-based birds, which are very vulnerable to diseases. So wild species are falling for avian flu, and we don't have any control or how to respond to this crisis. So ultimately, we are looking at a ecological imbalance, and that's the overall larger environment which is pushing for transmissibility, vulnerability, and increase in pandemics all over the world. But then we are not debating, we are not even looking at solutions which can reduce the ecological imbalance, which can address climate change, and which can also create barrier between zoonotic sources and human food systems. And of course, there's no transparency about lab experiments at all. So I think we need to look at this overall scenario and why governments are not working on that, and they continuously push for vaccination as the solution. So I think this larger question has to be raised because if we are talking of zoonotic diseases, I think we need to look at livestock management, how large farms are leading to this zoonotic viruses entering a human world. So livestock management requires a critical attention, and basically we need to look at increasing the diversity because the more you have mono crop kind of mono single species food systems, I think we'll be in trouble. So beef systems, all this piggery, poultry, I think these are all artificially created livestock food systems. I think we need to look at how sanitation is proper or not, why chemicalization is happening in these livestock rearing systems where increasingly food has become meat oriented, and how this meat is still contaminated by chemicals and also with the viruses. Now, ecological, of course, we know we need a wide forest growth. We need more forests come in because most of the viruses are germs, bacteria, and various other kind of wildlife. I think they would rather stay in a forest rather than come into human world. So we require agroecology systems as a solution. And again, when you are talking of lab, we need to ask for a ban on gain of function research, because this gain of function is basically trying to research on viruses and their functionality. So for SARS-CoV-2, it is said that the research was looking at how this virus can be based on transmissibility, or how transmissibility happens because of aerosol. That means in the air, usually viruses do not go transmit by air, only by touch, and so this gain of function is trying to look at how to increase that functionality of viruses. This looks very ridiculous research, but that's what is happening. So we need a ban on that, and then we need to ask for biosafety in labs wherever this virus research is going on, even if it is good for the human world or humanity. I think biosafety has to be reviewed, and how accidents have to be controlled, because once an accident happens, you cannot roll it back like what we are seeing with corona. So just because of some accident in Wuhan lab, entire world is suffering. Many lakhs of people have died unnecessarily. Economy is suffering, and livelihoods have gone. Well, poor people have become poorer because of all this. So it's not just about small aspect about lab. I think it's a larger issue. And then the pandemic response. So, when you come to whatever pandemic, whether it is avian flu, whether it is related to Nipah, Ebola, all these aspects, I think virus means, science says we need to increase our immunity. So then the immunity, how do you increase your immunity? I think that's a big question we'll go into discussion next slide. But then the treatment systems, they are all experimental treatments. So do we have a work which is going on standard operating procedures, especially in relation to COVID-19? So I think these are the questions which come up to mind. But ultimately, we are seeing that all over the world, all governments, democratic, dictatorial, all kinds of governments are still pushing for vaccination. So I think this is where the power, I think the struggle to maintain the power, to struggle retain power. I think out of that scenario, the solution for all of them is the vaccination. But we'll look into how vaccination is going to cause problems. So one, as I mentioned, immunity comes through two methods. One, natural method, and then the induced method. Induced method is probably through vaccination or through any other drugs taken by or recommended by the medical community. On the other hand, if you look at natural immunity, I think that demands nutritional security. That means nutrition has to increase. We need to have the kind of food system which can improve the natural immune system in the body. So it could be children, it could be women, it could be old people. I think we are talking of food which has vitamin C, all the vitamins which are essential to fight the virus infection. So this is a natural method. That means we need to look at our food systems and how food access can increase, the nutritional access can increase, and how we can become healthy without being prone to viral infection. On the other hand, you are looking at increasingly artificial immunity being pushed for through vaccination. But still, the issue is, all vaccines still become unproven. I mean, we need to prove whether vaccination are leading to immunity increase at all. Because last year when remdesivir and other drugs were discussed, even HCl, hydrochlorophyll, and other medicines. The discussion was if you look at artificial method of increasing the immunity, there could be a storm. They said you have antibody storm within the body, and that could be fatal for that person. So we are still looking at un, unassumed or unexpected responses to vaccination and drugs. So artificial methods of immunity are still not proven themselves. So I think that we need to understand clearly. Now, with regard to this corona pandemic, COVID-19, India has decided we'll have a population-wide vaccine strategy. So that means the entire population will be vaccinated, but in phases. So this population-wide vaccine strategy has been decided by, I think at least only a couple of maybe five, six people sitting in Delhi and thinking that this is the best method to respond to COVID pandemic. I think this again should be debated fully and completely, but unfortunately, Indian Parliament or legislatures are not discussing that, and I don't think policy makers are discussing it completely. So I think it's for us, common people, to push for discussion on whether population-wide vaccine strategy is the best strategy or is the only strategy that is required when you are responding to COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the very critical concern has come out because now government has approved, I think last week, two vaccines in India, and the approval letter clearly says it is emergency use authorization. So this emergency use authorization is not only in India, I think even across other countries have said this. But what it means is vaccines are still not completely, they are not gone through the trials completely, and the data which was generated through trials have not yet been assessed completely. So they are only authorizing it as an emergency use. But then this goes against the population-wide vaccine strategy, because emergency use means only when the COVID-19 patient is in the hospital and he has come for treatment, and over a period of treatment, and if they feel this person requires vaccine, I think that at that time vaccine should be given. But that's what I understand by this emergency use authorization. But then we are, vaccinating. I think next week the vaccination program will be for everyone, whether they are patients, whether they are asymptomatic patients, and whether they are COVID-19 patients at all. I mean, irrespective of their infections or whatever. I think everyone, so it is preventive vaccination. But then when the wording says emergency use authorization, on the other hand, vaccines are being as a prevention. So this dichotomy is not explained. And third aspect is in India, the approval letter says for one vaccine, it says it is authorized under clinical trial mode. So that means the trial is continuing, and but then this is being given as a medication. But so you have a trial along with the medication. So one of the virologists, leading virologist, she has been working on vaccination for long, and she said, I don't understand this. She says either there is a trial or no trial. You cannot have a clinical trial mode and have a vaccine strategy. So, but then there is no, authoritative response to this question raised by the virologist. So I think at least two, three molecular biologists and virologists have questioned this clinical trial mode, but there is no answer from the government how this approval has happened. Now, third issue I think which comes to my mind, and I am now asking is, every government is buying whatever vaccines are available. I mean, under emergency use authorization. So, Europe, they have approved at least six vaccines. So they are buying each vaccine so many million doses. So all kinds of vaccines are used. So here, each vaccine has been developed with a different method. So there are at least three vaccines which are based on mRNA. So mRNA is basically, this vaccine goes into your cell and tries to protect your body. But then there are other vaccines, especially one Indian vaccine, they say it is only inactivated virus. So inactivated virus will attach to your cell, and then it will trigger antibodies. But then when you don't have infection, and if antibodies are triggered without being infected, how long they'll stay in your body? I think that has not been answered. But then how can X person gets one virus vaccine, and second person gets another vaccine. So how do you justify this distorted vaccination? Because without knowing the condition of the person or his body, knowledge about the body and the responses that particular person has, how can you give a different vaccine? So probably, X person might have a better, natural immune system, and there you are giving mRNA-based vaccine, and on the other hand, you are giving some other person another vaccine. So without any assessment of the person and the person's body functions and the condition, vaccines are being given as if it is peppermint or it's a sweet everyone can universally eat. I think this is against the science which they are promoting. They are saying this is science, but then the fundamental question is how can you do that? Because vaccine itself, vaccine development is based on cells and the responsive systems of each body. So this, appears very illogical, and the biggest concern is it is this illogical thing is happening worldwide, not only in India. Now, fourth aspect is the adverse effects following immunization. So once you have vaccination, which they say is immunization, which is not the case because as we discussed, we don't know whether it leads to immunization or whether it leads to some other problem. So the adverse effects following immunization, I think this is still not mapped out. So people are not aware of what can be the adverse effects. So one or two cases where volunteers
Yeah, Reddy garu. I think there is some voice. Are you able to hear? Reddy,
not related with this.
there was some distortion. I
We
think
are
we
not,
could not hear in between those
sorry.
two lines.
Now are you able
Yes,
to?
yes, we are.
No,
We are
it
now.
is recon.
Yeah.
Um, this adverse effect organization, I think that is not being mapped properly and not being people are not being made aware of those adverse effects. So a person volunteer in Chennai, hello,
Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead, sir.
a volunteer in Chennai developed severe complications. Then they said, no, it is not related with this vaccination. A volunteer in Bhopal was affected. So wherever adverse effects were reported, I think they were brushed aside. So I think we should be concerned whether in future, once this vaccination program starts, whether there will be any mapping of adverse effects at all. Even though the COVID-19 vaccines communication strategy, this is a 80-page document developed by Government of India. It says we have to give information on AEFI, but the experience, the short experience in the last 6 months shows that it may not happen at all. But then coming to this communication strategy, I think Dr. Harshvardhan, Union Health Minister, when he was talking about this, he said governments and health workers involved in vaccination program have to be very careful about misinformation or disinformation. Uh, Probably will be done by miscreants. But then, so they said this communication strategy will counter that, and that counter means so they have identified four areas of work as part of this strategy. One is information on COVID-19 vaccine. So even though they flag this as a very important part of the communication strategy, even today we don't have any information on both the vaccines which have been developed, and the trials data is still not in the public domain. So I don't know what kind of information they are going to release on this. And second, vaccine hesitancy, because of this uncertainty surrounding vaccine, and then the lack of scientifically validated information. There is a vaccine hesitancy by patients or people to take vaccines. So they said we'll address this vaccine hesitancy as well, and vaccine eagerness. On the other side, people are eager to take vaccine, but they may not get a chance to take it because the production is happening low, very slow, and then on the other hand, there are large number of people who needs to be vaccinated. So we have seen memos and so jokes on this where some person, is ranked 79 crore rank to get that vaccine, even if he is registered today. So they said we'll address this vaccine eagerness and then the possible disappointment arising out of not getting that vaccine. And fourth, of course, is COVID appropriate behavior. So while vaccination, masking, and then physical distancing, I think that will be continuously re-emphasized. But then they are not listed COVID appropriate behaviors related to systems and institutions. They said it's only individuals, not about institutions and others. So COVID appropriate behavior which is expected from systems, institution and state, I think that is not part of this communication strategy. So overall, this government of India COVID-19 vaccine communication strategy, 80-page document, talks on four areas, but then there is a lot of gaps within that four areas they are trying to focus upon. So we'll come to what are those gaps. One is pricing. So pricing is still, is opening up, and fortunately, I think just about 20-30 days back, Belgium minister accidentally revealed the prices being negotiated by Belgium government to buy vaccines. So that gave an inkling of what kind of prices these companies are charging. And in India, Serum Institute, they have been declaring that the price they will offer for the government will be 200 rupees, and for in the private market they will give 1,000 rupees. But then just today, just 2 hours back, the government of India has issued a purchase order to Serum Institute to buy each dose at 210 rupees from Serum Institute, and 11 they have placed a purchase order for 11 million doses. That means roughly 23 crores money will be pumped in to Serum Institute to buy those vaccines. So this is mRNA technology vaccine. So now question is one, whether this 210 rupees, 10 rupees is this GST, and 200 is the price per dose. This is it a proper price, and whether any price audit has been done or not, we don't know, because if you look at the rates which are revealed by this Belgium minister, you can look at AstraZeneca. This is the same vaccine which Serum Institute is offering. In Belgium, the offer was 1.78 euros, which means it is 159 rupees as on date if you look at the euro. So we are paying more than what European Union is paying. What Belgium is paying. And European Union, it seems, has now negotiated some other higher price. But still, why are we paying more than Belgium, even though this is a developing country and a lot of the production is happening in India? Uh, that's a question remains. And Johnson and Johnson vaccine is offered at $8.5, which is very high. Sanofi GSK is 7.56 euros. Pfizer BioNTech 12 euros, CureVac 10 euros, Moderna $18, which is very expensive. But then not these five vaccines are not approved in India, so I don't think we'll have any concern about the price there. But You can see we are not sure what the price of for Bharat Biotech vaccine, which is supposed to be completely Indian vaccine. So between 200 rupees, if it is more or less, we are not sure with regard to Bharat Biotech. But Government of India has allocated 480 crores. I think 2 days, 3 days back they have announced for vaccination for this 3 crore individuals. But then if you per capita, it works out to 160 rupees per capita, which includes this price includes cost of 2 doses and infrastructure expenses. That's what it was given 2 days back. But when you look at the today's purchase order, one dose itself is costing 210 rupees. So I think we are going to see higher allocation for vaccination program. It will be more than 480 crores. If you go by this price, I think easily it should be somewhere between 1500 to 2000 crores because 2 doses involved. So I think increasingly we have to look at how pricing has happened because India is going to export vaccines as well. So I think there is a lot of profits involved in that. But then we'll end up, India will end up with the effluents and the pollution and then the probably, discarded viruses or inactivated viruses that might float in River Musi or even I think in Pune, it's called Mitti River or whatever, so in Krishna River. So basically, incidentally, both Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech are located in Krishna River basin. So whatever pollution generated by this vaccine production, it will join on the Krishna River ultimately. Now, what is required? I have 3 slides. I'll end with this because as I said, the communication strategy and the overall strategy of Government of India, a lot of gaps and challenges. One, data on the safety of vaccine has been questioned. Efficacy data has not been put out in the public domain, and government is silent on post-vaccination data as well. So even though they have developed COVID software and they are saying there are many, I think at least 33 states and then thousands of lakhs of people are involved in the ongoing vaccination rollout program. Data collection once the vaccination has been done on the individual is not explained either in the communication strategy or in any of the press releases. So we are not sure one of the vaccine data itself before approval, the trial data, the efficacy data, this should have been put out in the public domain so that the confidence of the people will increase. Communication strategy talks about addressing vaccine hesitancy by increasing the confidence by being transparent about it. In fact, there are at least 10 pages in the strategy which talks about transparency. So, as part of this transparency, government can as well release trial data. So without releasing the efficacy data, I think how will the confidence of the people on the vaccine will increase? I think this question is coming up very frequently, loudly across the country, and by virologists themselves, not only by common people. And second, where how much funds have been allocated for vaccination. So these are public funds going into private companies. So here the question is, I think invariably patents and patenting is involved, which is again not discussed. So when we are talking of public funds, I think even before buying vaccines, many governments have funded these companies to come up with vaccines by liberalizing a lot of funds. So that means even in research, public funds were involved. But then when the pricing is being decided, I think the company is calling the shots. So I think here, why can't, if at all these vaccines are good, if at all these vaccines can prevent corona, why can't there be a general license so that more companies can produce the same vaccine? So if this general license is given because the public funds are involved, I think more people can get vaccines at a faster rate. So that vaccine eagerness, where people can get disappointed, now we have they are producing maybe in lakhs or thousands, but then when the doses are required for 130 crore population or 6 billion or 7 billion world population, I think we need more companies to produce a vaccine. So you cannot now come back and say, no, this is patented and only these companies can profit out of this vaccination. I think these are the questions again coming out. Third, insurance cover for vaccinated. So vaccinated, once they are vaccinated, post-vaccination, as I said, there could be adverse events because of that. So people can fall sick because of vaccination, and they might require treatment, and they may have to go to hospital. So when public funds are used for vaccination, and when the vaccinator gets ill or because other events he could fall unhealthy, can become unhealthy, who will bear the cost? I think that's where you should talk about at least the insurance cover. So can we think of an insurance cover for vaccinated, but then government is not talking about. And other issue is the legal rights and protections for vaccinated. As I said, they have a problem because they are vaccinated by government, which decides the scientific the validity of the vaccine and not the individual. So I think there, what are the legal rights involved? I think that again has to be brought about. Now, again, I think about adverse effects, we need to develop a public database because since this is a clinical trial mode and this is emergency use authorization, as part of scientific effort or science validation and all those issues, I think we should ask for a public database of adverse effects. So there we can talk about enabling self-reporting. So just like CoWIN software where people are asked to register their themselves, I think the vaccinated should be given a software where they can start reporting on the issues they are facing, if they are facing or they are not facing, good, bad, ugly, all those adverse effects. We should develop a database so that it becomes more validated publicly. I think that that is a requirement. And then, if at all there is a problem or a severe problem and a person might have died, I think we should talk about compensation policy or free treatment policy. Because in Chennai, that volunteer, has almost become paraplegic and unable to do work. A normal person after vaccination is unable to work. That means that family requires financial support to survive. Otherwise, they'll become destitute and poor overnight just because of a small dose of unverified vaccine. So again, we need to look at free legal aid for those adverse reaction coming up. And then we need to declare a limit of adverse effects. So that means once you create a database and once you start monitoring the efficacy in a clinical trial mode, I think you need to declare a limit and stop the vaccination. So that means you need to look at when you can do that. So we need that standard operating procedure to be developed. And importantly, I think there is now a legal indemnity to manufacturers. So manufacturers, on the one hand, they are eager to claim patents and claim profits out of the vaccines becoming popular. But then they don't want any damages. If at all there are damages, they don't want to take liability for them. And then governments are happily having a policy of legal indemnity where manufacturers are no longer responsible. This is again, it does not work. I think logically, scientifically, legally, socially, legal indemnity to manufacturers has to be brought in. So we need to ask the government to dissolve the policy of legal indemnity to manufacturers. And in terms of transparency, which the COVID-19 communication strategy of Government of India talks about, as part of that, government should form a committee of civil society members to monitor the process. So because it's not only no longer it's only an expert issue, it is also about people. So I think government, in terms of as part of the transparency effort, it should create that committee which can monitor it and declare that this vaccination is non-mandatory. I think again communication strategy talks about bringing people, taking confidence of people into consideration. So repeatedly, as part of their awareness programs, I think it should be mentioned that this is non-mandatory. That means people can decide whether they want to have vaccination or not, even if it is frontline workers as well. So if you look at many countries where trials have happened, and even in US, where 100% vaccination was accepted earlier, I think doctors, medical doctors, nurses are hesitant to take the vaccine. But then government of India, India, when it is rolling out vaccination and when it is saying medical community will be the first to take, I think it is not, putting this clause on the front. So that means people are almost thinking that it is mandatory. So there is no declaration either way. I think government of India should declare this is non-mandatory and people can decide whether they want to take this or not. And usual practice in India now in recent years is whenever a public health program is being done, they are being linked to schemes and public health schemes. So they say if you take vaccination, then you become eligible for this subsidy. You become eligible for X and Y government program. I think this should not be done because when you're saying vaccination is required and vaccine hesitancy has to be addressed, we should not be linking with this with any schemes. So these are the challenges which are related to vaccination being huge vaccination program being rolled out next week. Government of India and even Prime Minister is saying this is the biggest once in a time event in the world. Such a big vaccination program is being rolled out, but then there is a lot of hollowness in this program. So we require, if at all this program has to be comprehensive, it has to address the issues which have been pointed out in this discussion. So I stop here, Dr. Shiva Prasad Reddy.
Yeah, I'll have just two or three questions for you before we wind up. Once again, wonderful
Uh,
presentation, Narasimha Reddy garu. I think you have made it very clear, loud and clear. I think if you just remove that presenter, this thing, I'll just put, we both can, you can quit that presenter.
yeah, I'm looking at. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Done.
yeah. So, one straight question, once again, thank you. It was one of the best presentations, I think, to the day. You have made out all the transparency aspects, accountability, and logically the liability aspects. Because if you are clear, if you feel the vaccine is going to work, you need to have all these transparency, accountability, and liability factors going. So you have traveled to Mumbai recently. You through,
Yeah.
I think you took flight. You went by air.
Yes, yes.
So when such is the case, people are moving freely, and in due course, maybe the infections are still not away. But if you take some precautions, don't you think that you feel safe and secure? That too, Mumbai was the hotbed. You flew from Hyderabad to Mumbai and Mumbai to Hyderabad back.
Yes, I think with more awareness, individual awareness, where everyone, I think in the last 1 year, probably due to forced lockdown, I think now more and more people are aware of taking precautions, and they are taking, and even airlines and all these institutions, transport mechanism, they are taking precautions so that this distance can be maintained, and people can have safe journey. So with precautions, with knowledge based precautions, we have kept COVID-19 at bay. If you remember our discussions in February 2020, we thought, the speed and then the virulence of COVID-19, it was expected that India will be, the entire India will be in a very serious, vulnerable situation. But then 1 year down after, we can see that people have responded well, and of course, there have been time lag and responses, but still, I think people know now how to take precautions. So that's where I have been mentioning non-vaccine, measures are required, and vaccine probably can be a last resort.
So before, I thought I'll just put you to you, as a doctor, we always say prevention is better than cure. Now, maybe it may take another 3 months or 4 months or 5 months for people to understand and get into the mode. In doing so, they are attaining natural immunity. Vaccination, or you have clearly shown immunity either by naturally you will get attain it through foodstuffs, and through when you get exposed, and or through forcefully injecting. So now, when you could travel safely Hyderabad to Mumbai and Mumbai to Hyderabad back, likewise many people are coming back to their normal this thing. And even elections, even Prime Minister Modi has addressed election rallies in Bihar and everywhere, even in Kerala, Telangana, many states. Madhya Pradesh by elections were held, three-tier local body elections were held, and there was not outrageous report of COVID-19 scare in spite of the second wave which is happening in Europe and USA. When such is the case, do you think this vaccination is that important?
Exactly, I think that's a question being raised. Viral infection, COVID-19 infections are very low, and they are, fizzling out in many areas. So why this sudden interest in vaccination and that too at such a large level? So there is no emergency now. If you look at the the data of government of India, you can see many states infections are completely low or almost zero, and everyday cases are also not very high. So maybe 1 or 2 days it was very high. Given that UK strain and other things, but still uh, infections are very low and very low kind of spread transmissibility we can see. So this vaccination as an emergency is not warranted because we have experimented with other data and then we have worked on different schemes. So I wonder why now after going through the emergency, after going through severe concern, now we are pushing for vaccination as if now we don't have any other choice. So I think that's a question not being asked not only by me, but I think by virologists themselves. So Dr. Gagandeep Khan is a very internationally acclaimed virologist. He is asking why this emergency provision being used now because infections were very low. We don't have that emergency situation as before.
Then India is rich in its constitutional abilities because we are unique in the spirit of constitution wherein we have submitted the constitution to ourselves, and the government, right from prime minister, chief minister, or for that matter cabinet secretary to chief secretaries, director general of police, or whoever it is, they are all run by the public fund, the taxes paid by the public. In such a scenario, when all state governments now they are planning to bring back some normalcy, even Kerala, right from January 1st, they have opened up educational institutions and everyone they are going around. Now other states they are planning it from January 18th or post Sankranti or these festivals. When such is the scenario, how is that the people, they themselves are the constitution, it is their money, they are not being informed of either the trials or why they have to take this vaccine? Where is the emergency? Is there any health emergency? Is it not against the fundamental principles or fundamental rights of citizens that they are being enforced or imposed, or they are creating that fear psychosis?
Yeah, that's a good question because Indian Constitution tries to empower the citizen, knowledgeable citizen. So fundamental principles, they try to empower citizen to ask questions, increase the knowledge and awareness. So based on that, you can be a citizen and you can perform your role as a citizen. I think that's where Indian Constitution is different from any other constitution in the world. So we are, despite that, government is saying it has rolled out vaccination in the name of emergency, even though there is no emergency. And secondly, it is not debating or discussing its strategy publicly or with the huge policy makers body. India has a vibrant democratic institutional setup. So we have a parliament, we have legislature, and we have many other levels of institutions. And these are the institutions which should have discussed this strategy, vaccination, and then they could have brought out a best strategy after those discussions. But then there's no publicly available data. We don't have publicly available discussion. We don't even know which platform have discussed this strategy and is rolling out this strategy. So I think this is where the concern is in Indian democracy. Power is being used, and third, government, is rolling out vaccination and is threatening in a threatening way. It is not saying, okay, this is a choice available to people. So it is not even clarifying whether it is mandatory or non-mandatory. So you can see it is being rolled out as if there is no other choice for the frontline workers. So the danger is, if you are losing your medical community to any adverse effects arising out of this vaccination, we'll be left with no system which can respond to any other pandemic. Not only the corona, if at all we have any medical situation and our own medical community is affected by the vaccination. So who can take care of our people? So that I think that concern is very serious. So if you are rolling out a program, you need to discuss with it and let the medical community, leave alone the common people. Let the medical community come out of the vaccine hesitancy. So their vaccine hesitancy is based on lack of information in the public domain. So I think government should address this vaccine hesitancy in the medical community and democratically address that hesitancy, not by forcing them to take the vaccination.
So you mean to say Covaxin, that is Serum Institute vaccine, Bharat Biotech vaccine, and as you rightly said, Indian Medical Association or any other body in India is not reacting nor they are voicing their concerns. You mean to say placebo is given to these people and people are, the innocent people of India will be on trial with these two vaccines, Serum Institute as well as Bharat Biotech. How do you look at this scenario? Why the Indian medical associations or for that IMA or those organizations are not coming forward voicing their concern? How do you look at this thing? You mean to say they will be given placebo and others will be put on trial?
We don't know what's happening because nothing is in the public domain. And even though there are individuals who are raising concerns, even among doctors, medical doctors, here and there, but we are not seeing their associations or their representative bodies raising questions on this and comprehensive questions. We are seeing here and there muted voices or very low feeble voices, but very strong response has not come from. I mean, at least I have not seen any response coming from medical community. As I said, leave alone people, common people. But then now vaccination is going to be taken up for medical community first, and then frontline health workers. So my concern is there is a lot of hesitancy and there is lack of awareness among these frontline health workers, 3 crore health workers. Why can't the government educate them? They are more knowledgeable on medical issues. And if they are hesitant, what about the common people who don't know this medical technical issue? So I think government has a huge responsibility to respond to this vaccine hesitancy in medical community, and it will be a dialogue between knowledgeable and knowledgeable. Because if they are saying these vaccines are scientifically proven, the health minister is rubbishing the questions on the trial data. Okay, fine, you are knowledgeable because he is a medical doctor himself. So the committee which has cleared the vaccines for production, I think they are also knowledgeable. Why can't this knowledgeable set of people educate the knowledgeable medical community fast to overcome this vaccine hesitancy among this community. Why they are not doing it? Why even before addressing that concern, why vaccination programming is rolled out as if that is a fait accompli, as if there is no other choice, as if there is an emergency. I think this is, what is happening and what we can't understand.
Last question, whether this is an attention diverter from ongoing farmers' struggle and the unemployment which has just taken over, and the sordid state of affairs before corona. Even before corona, many states also were going through this economic turmoil, not just union government. Union government, yes, definitely yes, they promised a lot, nothing was happening, and on the umbrage of corona you have seen what has happened. You mean to say this is an attention diverter, and to the medical community, medical Indian medical associations, even the government doctors associations, with due respects to all, and all the other sundry associations, why are they not coming forward? Is it because of the pharmacy and insurance mafia taking care of them? These two aspects, how do you look at these two scenarios, government as well as the medical organizations?
Maybe, if your question is about it is a diversion from the political imbroglio in which the government has landed itself is related to farm laws. But then that's what I've been saying. In the last 1 year, all over the world, the power structure is trying to reinforce its power using corona pandemic as a ruse, and the response is not scientifically validated, legally approved, and democratically debated. So I think in these circumstances, whatever government is doing is there is a trust factor there. So there is lack of trust. Why it is doing, for what motivation it is doing. So I think it's a big trust factor which is coming up. So I think government to clarify many of these issues to the Indian public in general. And that one thing it can have been done by being transparent. So once you are transparent, I think it will help.
Yep.
Uh,
Right. I think the transparency of the government is the key.
uh,
Yeah, there is some voice distortion, Narasimha Reddy garu. But as you rightly said, it is the transparency and accountability of all the government actions.
in pushing or
Yeah, I think your voice is getting distorted.
yeah, now it is restored. Is it okay? Where did I?
In the
Where
accountability,
did it go?
transparency and accountability.
Yeah, of course. I think Government of India needs to respond to constitutionally approved transparency, accountability, and liability provisions. I think it needs to roll out all these provisions if it wants to increase the trust of the people on its programs, especially on vaccination. I think these three principles have to be adhered to.
Right.
And then the precautionary principle, precautionary principle says unless until the scientifically proven,
Right.
we should not go for that. So
Right.
I think based on this, these three are required: transparency, accountability, and liability.
Right.
And without that, I think any program, even if it is very good and if it is the only
Right.
solution, it will not work out.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Narasimha Reddy garu. I think once again it is very clear that the government has to act in a transparent and accountable way. At the same time, if these vaccinations which you are going to inoculate to the Indian citizens, if they are scientifically proved, then why not the liability clause? And why is that government has come the forefront in funding research? That is public money. That is where the transparency, accountability, and liability happens. The governments, state governments as well as union government, you have to answer, you are liable to answer, and it should be in a transparent and accountable way, because if these vaccinations are scientifically proved and approved at clinical trials, if they are not going to be more dangerous than the existing COVID-19 itself, why this care? Why this obscurity? Why this ambiguity? How long? Are you going to put the health of people at stake? And that too by public funds, public taxpayers, people's taxpayers' money, public taxpayers' money, and in the name of their health, are you going to put the Indian citizens for clinical trials of these two organizations' vaccinations? If not, come out clean. There should be a lot of data in the public domain. Let people understand. Let people adore you. People come back to the governments stating that yes, I want to be vaccinated, because there is a choice between natural immunity and the induced vaccination. When India is rolling back to normalcy, as is being claimed by state government and union government itself, do we need vaccination at this hour? When such is the case, in whose benefit? When that is the question which being asked by every Indian citizen, that is the reason why we are demanding transparency, accountability, and fix the responsibility. That means liability. And Indian Medical Association and all those government doctors association, allied organizations of Indian medical community, you have to come out clean, because it is the question of public health. Otherwise, people will not excuse us. We are professionals. Let us talk very clearly and let us educate people. At the same time, let educate government, and let us understand what pharmacies and insurance companies are doing. We are answerable. So I hope at least now the medical fraternity will rise to the occasion, come to the rescue of the people, and make these governments, whether union or state governments, in the case of vaccination or in the case of corona COVID-19, to act in a transparent, accountable way, and also to fix the liability, because it is health, it is not a commodity. Thank you, sir. See you with another show
Thank you.
tomorrow. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.